So thank you. We will proceed from where we left. And for the purpose of this class, I wanted to do, I just wanted us to have a look at today I wanted us to have a look at a case study whereby we'll be able to do a bit of data analysis. And basically, our starting point will be on the use of VLOOKUP. Last time, or basically, we have mentioned that Microsoft Excel is a powerful tool that you can use to analyze data. And it's important that as an accountant, as an economist, or as an engineer, you can actually use this tool to do a lot of data analysis and make insights from the data that you have. Basically, for the use of VLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, it's actually a function that is used to identify existence of entries in one worksheet. You can compare it with another worksheet. Like, for example, I'm assuming that this example, it's a case study whereby we have a donor who is giving grants to companies, and at the same time, the funds are disbursed in batches. Like, for example, you can see here we have the company number and the amount of grant that was approved. So we have 200 companies whose grants were approved. So the last company, the registration number 2015. And if we just do a simple mathematics on the total, you realize that this company intends to give out grants, a grant of 545,000. Yeah. What I had mentioned is that we are now going to look at how we can use the VLOOKUP in doing data analysis in Excel. And I want us to use a case study whereby we have companies that applied for grants from various donors. So we have the companies. From the top, we have a company whose registration number is 1025. And when it applied the grant, a total of 3.1 million was granted so that the company can be able to undertake its project. And the total amount granted, or the total grant, totals to, that is 545 million Kenya shillings. So now this is exactly what was approved. And remember, what is approved, it's not necessarily what will be disbursed immediately. Remember, grants, they are given and the funds are also disbursed in batches. Now, in this particular sheet, I have what we call grant paid in batch 1. So we are having some of the companies that applied for the grant, 100 of them were paid, or the first disbursement was done. And this disbursement, if you can allow me just to do the total, we'll be able now to see that a total of 10 million was disbursed. Then again, another batch was disbursed. And again, if I look at the sheet, a total of 100 companies, they actually received the grant. And if I do the total, I'll be able to, if I just do the total, I'll be able to see that a total of 66 million was disbursed in the second batch. So ideally, the main assignment that we need to unlock here is that, assuming that you are the project manager in charge of the grant, and probably the only information you have is that this is a list of the grants that was approved. Then the first batch, a total of 10 million was disbursed to 100 companies. Then again, there was another disbursement which happened of 66 million. So as a manager, we basically want to understand which companies have been paid and what is the balance. Because from the total grant of 545 million, and if you go to batch one, already 100 million was disbursed. Then in batch two, we have 66 million. So averagely, we can say that 77 million has been disbursed. But now the question here is, if we want to be able to understand what has been disbursed and what is the difference. So that is why we want to use the VLOOKUP to analyze this data. Now, this is actually the main sheet that contains the grants approved. Now, this other sheet, we call it grant paid batch two. We basically want now to get the companies that were paid, and we bring in the batch here. Let me just say this is batch one. So this batch one, we want to find out the amount paid. Then again, we'll also bring in the batch 02 in terms of the amount disbursed. Then we'll be able to get the total. We can say that the total amount disbursed. Then of course, we can also be able to get what we call the balance. That is amount due. Balance due for disbursement. So now in Excel, what we want to do is that these companies, we want to identify that if this company 1025, if it was paid any grant in batch one, we now want to bring that amount in this particular cell. So ideally, if you don't have the know-how of how to use the VLOOKUP, you will simply come here and say, I have a company called what? Whose registration number is 1025. So it was paid 106,000. So I'll just copy this figure. Then I come and say that this company was paid 1025. Then again, I'll have to go to the next company, 1035. I get the figure, then I bring it here. But because now the data that we are dealing with is so much, yeah, you might be handling more than 1,000 records or 500 or even 1,000. So that is why it's important that now we need to understand how we can actually use this function. Now, what I'll simply do, the VLOOKUP function, we simply say equals, then you type V, when you type equals V, you'll now be able to see that we have what? A VLOOKUP function. So when I click on this VLOOKUP function, it will prompt me, maybe I'll just go ahead and write the formula. I will say that from the VLOOKUP, I want to look up for this company, okay? I want to look up for this company. In which table? That is the table array. I'll say that in batch two, I want to check the existence of any of the company that was paid here. Then, if I get that company, I will return I will return a column 2. If I don't get that company, I say false. So I press enter. So now here, you can now see that this company, 1025, in batch 1, it was paid 108,000. So if I copy this formula, if I copy it down, sorry, I'll apply what we call the absolute referencing. I will explain that. Then I autofill. So from here, you can now be able to see that any company that was paid in batch 1, the amount will be indicated here in batch 1. So you can be able now to see that I have the amounts paid for various companies. Where we have the not applicable, it means the company never received anything. So where we have the not applicable, it means that the company never received any grant in batch 1. Then again, just allow me to do a demonstration, then I'll explain. Then in batch 2, again, we say VLOOKUP. I want to look up for a company whose registration number is this one. Then I come to batch 2. And in this batch 2, again, I want to find if any company appears in batch 2, then I want the system to return the amount disbursed. If not the case, you just say false. So when I press enter again, I realize that this company 1025, whose registration number is 1025, it never received any grant in batch 2. So the first company that received a grant in batch 2 was 2015, and the amount was 640. So if I come to the grant and I apply the absolute reference here, then I copy the same. I can see there's no company. Let me just reconfirm the formula. That is VLOOKUP batch 2. You return to false. Let me just pick a company like 1030. Let me see which company, 1030, 11. Let me just go to the batch 2. The first company that received is 2015. That was the first company. Then again, if I look at the grant, I expect 2015 and 2015. And 2015, actually, I should be able to see the 2015. This is how much it received. Then it means my formula, I need to recheck my formula. And let me just write it again. VLOOKUP. I'm looking for this company from batch 2. And if I get that company, I will return the second column. Otherwise, I'll say false. That is a false match. That is a false match. Okay, I think there was an issue with my formula because I can see now it has returned the first company. Of course, we'll verify the same. So again, you can now see that this company 1025, in the first batch, it received 106,000. In batch 2, it received 507. So if I confirm here, allow me just to sort by company. That is company's smallest to the largest. You can see that this company, registration number 1025, it received a grant of 507, and in the first batch, it received 106. So it is actually true that this company, it received 2 disbursements. Now, this is possible because of the VLOOKUP function. Then again, when you're using a VLOOKUP function, sorry, the machine that I'm using, I was using it, it had a technical issue and I picked this other one. But now what will happen is that when you apply the VLOOKUP function, when you say equals to VLOOKUP, it will give you what we call a guide, a wizard. So in the formula here, you can see that the VLOOKUP, how the syntax, it will tell you that equals to VLOOKUP, then you open the brackets, then you look up value. So which value do you want to match with from another worksheet? So we are saying that this is the value that we want to match or we want to compare if it exists in what we call the table array. So the table array, it is the one that contains the data that we want to do what? To match. So if I come here to grant paid batch 2, you'll actually see that the array, I've selected the whole data set. So this is the data that we want to do what? We want to compare. So if any of the company whose registration number is here, if it was paid any grant, then we instruct the system to return what? To return the figure. And the amount disbursed, why I was using that, why I was using comma to return 2. So basically you are telling the computer or the MS Excel to return the second column, because we are saying that this is column 1, this is column 2, this is column 3, this is column 4, this is column 5. Assuming that in the first disbursement, there was what we call a legal fee. Maybe the companies were charged a legal fee. And this legal fee, it ranged between 2,000 to 10,000. In our previous class, we learned about a function called grant between. So this function basically generates random numbers between, I'm saying that the legal fee charge was between 2,000 as the lower limit, and the upper limit was what? 5,000. So when I close the bracket, now the system has generated for me just a random legal fee that was charged. Remember, this data, we are just using it for assumption. But in case of when you want to actualize, you'll realize that there will be a formula for calculating the legal fee depending on the amount approved and all that. So my reason here for bringing in the legal fee was again just to demonstrate how to use a random number. So we want the system to randomly give us the legal fee charged for disbursing the first batch. So what I said, I just said between, I say equals grant, then I say between, the lower amount charged was 2,000 and the upper was 5,000. So when I close the bracket, the system will generate for me the random legal fee paid. Then I can also autofill this amount paid. Then I can format the same to zero decimals. can format the same to 0 decimals. Sorry for that. Numbers. Sorry, let me just use this other function. I formatted this to 0 decimals. So this is actually the legal fees charged. Now, assuming that, let me just copy. Remember random numbers we discussed, and we said that the system, the random numbers, they're not static, they're dynamic. And that is why at any given time, the random numbers will keep on changing. So this is the legal fees charged. Assuming that again, now in our grant, we already know that the first batch, this is what was charged. The second batch, this is what was charged. And again, we introduce another column called the legal fees. Yeah, that was charged in batch 1. Now, again, using the VLOOKUP function, we can now come here and say that we want to look up for these values. We want to look up for this company number from this table, batch 1. So we are going to highlight the entire data set. And remember the figure, the amount that we are looking for, it is in what? It is in column 3. So if you don't find that particular figure, we can say that return false, then we close. So now what it means, is that any company that was not paid any amount, it will not have the legal fee. So just a minute, I confirm the legal fee charged as this legal fee. Sorry, we had said that the amount charged is a random number between 2,000 to 5,000. Sorry, I think my upper limit was 50,000. Sorry for that. Here we are saying that, yeah, now it's falling between 2,000 to 5,000. Let me just copy it. Then again, yeah, this is actually the legal fees, because we are saying that the legal fees charge was between 2,000 and 5,000. So if I come back to the grant worksheet, I can calculate again VLOOKUP. I want to look up for this company, this company registration number 1025. I go to the batch 2, batch 1. Then again, if I get that registration number, if it's appearing, you return column number 3, because it is the one that contains the legal fee charged. Then I close. So that is the legal fee charged. So again here, I will just come and use the absolute referencing. Then I apply the out of fill. Then I copy the same. So you realize that this is actually the companies. Any company that had a disbursement in first batch, there was a legal fees attached. Then also just to mention is that when you use the VLOOKUP, you realize that the value, you can see the value here when I click, like for example, 133, this value is not actually, if I go to the formula bar, you'll see that this value, it is just originating from a formula which actually looks up for these values from the other corresponding table. So what I'll do, I can highlight, I can copy these values because the system has already done for us the computation. Then I can come and copy them as what? As values. So I don't want now the values. I don't want the formulas, but I purely require the values. So the values are here. And again, where we don't have the not applicable, probably again in Excel, we have a tool called find text. Like for example, now we can say that find not applicable. Let me just copy not applicable. Then you can replace it with 0. Then again here you say replace all. So you can now see that the system has now actually replaced all the not applicable with no values. Now, in this case, we can be able to get the total amount disbursed. And we can say that the total amount disbursed. And of course, now the total amount disbursed, probably we are looking at what was disbursed in batch 1 plus what was disbursed in batch 2. Then we get the total. So if I copy the same total, I'll be able now to say that these are the totals. And this is the total for the total grant. The total grant approved was 545 million. I can as well copy the same, just so that I can also be able to see the net amount disbursed. And remember, when we started, we mentioned that in batch 1, a total of 10 million was disbursed. So when I'm getting these figures from sheet 2, this sheet from the grant paid in batch 1 to the grant worksheet, I expect the batch 1 to give me a total of what? 10 million, which actually the system has already given us that it's true. Amount disbursed in batch 1, it is what? 10 million. Then again in batch 2, a total of 66 million was paid. And again, we are able to see from the figures that we brought in from sheet, that is batch 2, which was totaling to 66 million. It is in this particular main sheet. So at the end of the day, you can confirm that actually in batch 2, a total of 66 million was paid, and a total of 10 million paid in batch 1. And we also have a total of 359,000 that was charged for the disbursement of those funds. And at this point, you realize that now, like a project manager, I basically know that we already have some companies that have already received something, and we have other companies that they have not received any disbursement. Then again, now you can decide that now probably batch 3, because you have already done 2 disbursements and there are companies that have not received anything. Probably now the focus will be on what? On the companies that have not received any disbursement. Now, at this particular point, probably for you now, assuming that you have been given a report to generate, because remember here we are just having figures, yeah? So for me to know that this company, it has been paid a total of this, we have added the total disbursements in batch 1 and batch 2, then now we can also have now the amount that is a balance due for disbursement. So this balance due for disbursement, we are actually now going to get, the amount approved we less from the total amount disbursed. Then from that point, we can now be able to know that this is the amount that is due for disbursement. But again, by just virtue of looking at this data, you realize that we may not really be able to tell which company was paid and which one has not received any grant. So like, for example, this company 1065, the grant was 535, and after the first two disbursements, again, you find that still the amount due is what? 535. Now, again, we may wish to put a remark. Yeah, we want now to use an if function just to put a remark here. And basically what we want is that if any of these companies received a grant, either in batch 1 or batch 2, at least we are going to say that they received. Yeah, but if any of the company, like for example, this company 1045, they have never received any grant, we can also say not received any grant. So ideally, we just want now to use the if function to tell that at least this company received, this one has not received, because now at the end of the day, we are not going to present this kind of figures to the management that now this is the amount paid and all that, because they are interested with how much has been paid and how many companies have been paid so far and how many companies have not received any of the amounts granted. Now we are going to use an if function. We say that is equals to if. Now here, if it's actually a function used for decision making, we call it, it's a logical function. Now, remember we have what we call the balance due for disbursement. Allow me just to shade this balance due for disbursement with this color. I hope you can see. And again, we have the approved amount. So in other words, we are going to say that if approved amount is the same as the balance, then it means no disbursement done. But if approved amount is, okay, let me say if amount due is less than approved amount, then of course it means that a disbursement was done. So that is actually the essence that we want to put here. So we are saying that is equals to if balance due, and remember I've just clicked in this cell called G2, if balance due is equals to what? The amount disbursed, the amount approved, comma, we can put a comment in that particular field that not paid. Allow me just to use this not paid. Otherwise, if that is not the case, then there was what? Paid. So let me just press enter. So when I copy this formula, you'll now be able to see that at least the first three companies, the first company 1020 received a payment in batch 1 and batch 2. So at least some amount was paid or disbursed. Then company 1030, the first disbursement, that is in batch 1, there was no funds. Batch 2 again, there were no funds. There was the fund that was disbursed. So at least a payment was done. Then again, this other company, 1045, batch 1, there was no disbursement. Batch 2, no disbursement. So you can now be able to see that we already have not paid. So at least now we have done a bit of analytics. You can now be able to see how many companies have been paid and which ones have not been paid. And of course, in Excel, if you highlight this data and you decide to sort, you can sort this data. You can sort this data. You go to data, then you sort by what? By remark. So if I sort by remark in ascending or descending order, I click on the field which is remark, then I click OK. So you can be able to see that quite a number of companies, they have not been paid, but again, some they have been paid. So this is just part of the analysis. So you can even decide to get the data. You can highlight the data for the companies that have not received any payment. I can come here and probably just say select. Then I paste this data in another worksheet. I create a new worksheet. I paste. Then I can call this worksheet as not paid. But again, this is not the best approach. Remember, the management, they are not interested in probably the list. But of course, having the list is also important. But now what I want to just bring out is that now based on the analysis we have done, we can also be able now to subject this data further to a pivot analysis. We can identify the total amount paid in batch 1, amount paid in batch 2, the total amount disbursed, and even the balance due. Now let's have a look at the pivot table. We want to subject this data to further analysis. We say insert. I've just clicked on insert pivot table, and I want to just generate a pivot table in the same sheet. And basically, I'm interested in remarks. Let me just pull remarks under the row. Remarks. Then we have total amount disbursed and probably the balance due. And let me just apply that. So from here now, we are able to see a bit of analytics that from where we sit are not paid. The amount that has not been paid stands at 142 million. Amount paid is actually 76 million. And amount that has not been paid stands at 326 million. So again, if I come back to our original data, if I just get the total summation, you'll be able to see that from this data, we said that this column holds the amount that was approved. This 10 million is what was disbursed in the first batch. 66 is what was disbursed in batch 2. The total disbursement stands at 76 million and a balance of 468 million still pending. So again, you realize that all this data, what we have actually been doing here, we have just been summarized. This information has just been summarized for us here. So probably the management will only be interested in amount paid, will be interested in amount disbursed and the amount not disbursed. And from here, you can see that at least 76 million was disbursed, and we have a total of 468,000 million that has not been disbursed so far. Then again, just for purpose of demonstrating, because I know we have a few minutes left, there is another data that we're not going to do the demonstration. I'll just do the demonstration. And let me just brief you on this analysis. We have a company, I've just called this company, it's an Mcash mobile money. So this Mcash mobile money, they just recently, they entered into the market for mobile money lending, and they decided to concentrate in 5 regions. So this company basically records, this company came up with what we call the targets. This company came up with targets for each region. You can see that I'm just highlighting the targets. And again, because it's a mobile money lending company, they understand that the members of the public, they can access money either through the USSD, we call it a short code, or the members of the public, they can access money using the mobile app. And in this scenario, they came up with targets that each region on a daily basis, it will have a target, and immediately they roll the product, they'll now be getting the actual. And again, this is the target for the USSD. This is the actual amount disbursed through the USSD. And this is the amount disbursed through the mobile app. So we collected the entire data for 1 year. Remember, on a daily basis, if you are to capture this data, if you are to keep this data, you will actually have 5 dates. That is the 1st January 2022. You will record the regions. Then again, you capture the targets. Then again, you record the actuals. So you can actually now see that in this particular worksheet, we have all the disbursements done between 1st of January to December 31st. So in terms of the number of records, we are saying that we have 1,627 records. Now, the reasons why we want to capture this data is that we want to do some statistical analysis. We want to identify which region actually met its target and which region never met its target. And given that this is a fintech company, probably it just operates through the mobile. Probably they want to test the market, then later they will wish now to have physical offices. And one thing they cannot decide is whether to set up the physical office in Central Region, in Western Region, in Coast Region, in Nairobi Region, or in Eastern Region. They want to set the head office in one of the regions that actually consumes most of this particular facility. Now, in this particular analysis, basically I captured the actuals, the targets, and again, I also computed the variances. And later, what I came up with is I used the VLOOKUP, the pivot table, just to give me statistics on the USSD analysis, the mobile app analysis, and finally the overall analysis. So from that data, you can see that the Western region, the Central region, it consumed, or the total disbursement done for that region was 94 million against a target of 94 million. Coastal region, there was a disbursement of 62, or the total loans issued was 62 vis-a-vis the target of 62 million. Eastern region, there was a disbursement of 63 million against 62 million. And the same case happened at the Western region. It gave out 63 million against the target of what? Of 61. So basically, if you look at the targets, the variance, so the variance, like for example, the Central region, it just falls short of 127,000, and the Western region, it falls short of 1.4 million. So ideally, when we look at the statistics as per the USSD, we realize that all the regions, they were able to meet the targets. Now let's come to the mobile app. So in Central, there was a target, there was an actual disbursement of 243 million through the mobile application against a target of 249, and there was a shortfall. There was a shortfall of 5 million. In the coastal region, the actual disbursed was 66 million against a target of 168. There was a shortfall. But in the Eastern, the target was 164. But again, there was a disbursement of 167. So meaning that there was an over disbursement. And the same case also happened to Western region, whereby they disbursed 165 million, but they had a target of what? 163 million. So by looking at this figure, you realize that these two regions, they have a big potential for this particular product. So for our case, we are just using a mobile disbursements, but now for your case, you might be given, or you might be dealing with the sales, you might be dealing with any other data that probably you have been provided. Then again, I also decided to do the overall. Like now, Central region was disbursed 338 million against a target of 343. So meaning that this region, actually, it disbursed, it disbursed 5 million less the target. These other region, like for example, the Eastern region, they disbursed 230 million, but the target was 226 million. So they surpassed their target by 3 million. The Western region, they had a target of 228, as this is the actual disbursed, but the target was 225 million. So they also performed well, and they gave out loans in excess of 3.4 million. So now, in terms of deciding where should we set our branch, our head office, where should we open probably the physical offices? Now, based on this data, you can be able to say that actually Western region, the sales were surpassed the targets, as well as what? As well as the Eastern region. So if you make a recommendation that any figure, any variance target that is what? that is negative, it means there was what? There was over disbursement, which shows that actually the people from that particular region consumes most of this product. So basically, that is just a basic analysis on what Microsoft Excel can do. We started with the grant, and we are able to use the VLOOKUP. We're also able to just do use the if function. And the if function, what we basically say that if the total disbursement, like for example, now in this case, if the amount disbursed, let me just sort back this data in ascending order, that is based on the companies. Let me sort based on the company in ascending order. From the smallest. So let me just explain. You can now see actually what we did. We demonstrated how to use the VLOOKUP. We also demonstrated how to use the if function. And at the end of the day, we are able now to make insights on which company received the grant and which company never received the grant. And again, when we applied I did name the grant, there's that bit of the grant. Okay, I think I created the same in the same worksheet. We are now able to get statistics of the status. So the management is only interested in the total grant paid and amount that is actually due for disbursement. The rest of the data, it is purely for the other technical team to use it to track and also maybe to give recommendation. But for the management, this is the entire data that they require from this whole data set. So I will stop on that particular note. And as we mentioned that this was just a free class to demonstrate the power of Microsoft Excel. So for those students who have registered, we will proceed with our Sunday class. And those ones who have not registered and probably they have just actually seen the demonstration. So I'll just urge you to register so that as we proceed, you are not left behind. There are so many other functions that will be discussing in the course. So I will really urge you to enroll and benefit from this business data analytics class that is richly has the advanced Excel training. Thank you very much. I will stop at that particular point. And I will actually request, if you have any question, you can ask before we conclude. Thank you.